Yes, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever the time zone you are logging in. I'm seeing people posting from early in the morning to late in the evening. So it's for us it's very important to have people from all over the globe. And after these amazing presentations, I'll have to present you a little different point of view. Let's say summing up all the solutions that we have found. Access to education, which is a fundamental human right, is always threatened and compromised in times of crisis like this. Economic crisis, wars, environmental crisis, and pandemics always impact on the education of children, and this affects us all for many years in the future. And this is something that also Mr. Patrinos elaborated before. During COVID-19, schools shut their doors but opened a new door, the door of unprecedented transformation in education. However, it is not going to be a successful transformation unless the global teaching community makes sure that all the students remain on the right side of this new door. The information presented here is from our own experience, as we work with more than 100 schools in many different countries, and we have worked with ministries and other stakeholders in education, and also from organizations like UNESCO, UNICEF, World Bank, OECD, Microsoft, the Varkey Foundation, the World Economic Forum for a Business Perspective, etc. So, our experience from the field is summarized in the following slides. This is something that already discussed during the previous presentations, but I'd like to sum them up from what we see. So it is true that the income plays an important role, also for the at-risk students, and also the students that coming from low-income families. Students that have lower educated parents, students whose first language is not the language of teaching, or they have disabilities or learning difficulties. And for some countries, being a female student is really a problem. So these are the profiles that we have to address. And this is how governments all over the world have tried to address this important issue. From the data published by UNICEF, UNESCO, and World Bank, and collected through surveys carried out on the local offices, it becomes evident that the majority of the countries apply the remote learning policies to ensure that learning is maintained during the COVID-19 crisis, and that the students from primary to upper secondary are reached. You can see the mediums, internet, radio, television, and the total, and most of the countries have such measures. What we can see is that in the same report, it becomes apparent that in some parts of the world, students can't be reached via the internet. For many students in South Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, radio and TV are the only channels to communicate and continue learning. And we understand that the quality of education is not so good through these mediums. Now, all over the world, the governments have taken immediate measures to support the most disadvantaged families. Some examples of these measures are: from Spain, a recently adopted law rules that families with children that were entitled to school meals, they will be getting financial aid or food for the period that the schools remain closed. The Dutch government devoted a budget of 2.5 million euros for the purchase of laptops for students who didn't have a device, giving them this way immediate access to remote learning. In Portugal, a national TV channel was broadcasting classes in several subjects. This way they managed to reach this household that didn't have access to the internet or a device. In Ireland, the Department for Education and Skills gave teachers and educational institutions specific advice and resources to support students threatened by educational disadvantage. Now, a number of the problems that arose are listed here. I have two slides for this, and this is the way that it was addressed by various countries and governments. So for the loss of instructional time, what they did was provide online learning, of course, but also having the TV and radio educational broadcasts, and some countries introduced the educational packages that they sent over to students. For the problem of the teachers being unprepared to handle the change because it happened so rapidly, the solutions were distant learning for professional development, readjustment of the curriculum and assessment calendar, and this is something very important because we cannot have the same type of education in real time and online. And the governments created hotlines for technical support to support both parents and teachers. For the lack of connectivity and equipment, of course, the usage of TV and the radio was one, and the governments lent teachers and students devices, and in some cases they did a partnership with post offices in order to be able to deliver educational materials. Now, for the problem that the students lack the right space for online lessons, there are not so many solutions, unfortunately, but it is something that can be addressed from the teachers, from the educators, if they are able to communicate flexibly with the students. For the problem of the students deprived of the school meals, which is very important. We have families receiving either a refund for the school fees, or provision of meals on a pick-up and go basis, or issuing redeemable credit cards for any commercial food establishment, so people could go out and get the food from there. Now, for the big problem of the increase in the dropouts, some schools remained open for the at-risk children, and social pedagogues provided advice to students as much as possible by phone. For the burden that is becoming on parents, we will talk a little bit, it's very important. Online pedagogical support for the parents, teaching guidelines and learning materials for the parents, and a few schools remained open for the children that could not be taken care of at home. Now, the methodologies that amplify student engagement. I have listed a few here that I think are very important, starting with social emotional learning. Now more than ever, we understand how important it is to demonstrate empathy and resilience, build relationships across distance. All these skills are extremely important to students who belong at the at-risk groups, as it is a fact that people with strong social emotional skills are better able to cope with everyday challenges and benefit academically, professionally, and socially. Project-based learning, you know about that. It allows students to explore and have their own pace and explore their curiosity and with their teammates, etc. Assessment strategies. There are gaps and disparities in educational services, especially as some schools remain closed fully or partially, and we live that in many countries around the world now. So this is a different way to address this, is to change the timing and the strategies that assessments are being used. Now, schools are being advised by assessment professionals to use formative or informal, ongoing, and flexible testing in order to help and identify their students' academic strengths and weaknesses, and to collect other accountability data, such as attendance, in order to measure overall student well-being. Now, regarding the curriculum, a lot of discussion on the what, how, where, by whom, and when of education. So this discussion now has changed a lot because of the means that we deliver the education, and these are all important questions that have to be addressed. The student-centered teaching, lessons built on students' curiosity, it's very important. Now we have a plethora of online apps and tools, free, that sparkle students' curiosity and engagement, and so educators can use them in order to increase the curiosity of the children. Now, the blended learning is to help those who lack access to devices and connectivity. We discussed a lot about it. We heard a lot about it from the previous speakers, but I will also come back with some solutions. Now, in the next two slides, I have some key problems and some workable solutions. Teachers and students used to be offering the traditional way of learning, and they are resistant to adjust to the demands of the online learning because it is not so easy for most people. Teachers and students in lower income countries are even more resistant as they have to face a number of practical problems as well. The solution is a change of mindset and actively seek collaboration and guidance. School administrators need to provide teachers with context regarding each student's circumstances. This way, teachers will manage to connect with their students with other means and come up with ways to reach them in the most effective way. We talked a little bit before about social and emotional learning. But they need to know from the beginning and act proactively. Children in poorer areas of the planet have received the minimum of distant learning. We saw the example with the TV and radio only, the possible means for education. They were just passive receivers of piece of knowledge, and this affects their levels of motivation. Remote lessons need to be interactive and spark their imagination and creativity. This is extremely important for the overall effort to minimize dropouts due to remote learning inefficiencies. Teachers of underprivileged students need to innovate and produce time-flexible solutions in order to provide their students with lessons that are as interactive as possible. We all know that the relationship a student builds with his teachers can really shape their future. According to a research by Shin-Ho Kim from Department of Health Policy and Management at Korea University, improving students' relationships with teachers could have important, positive, and long-lasting effects beyond just academic success. It is crucial that students continue forming strong relationships with their teachers in remote learning as well, which is not something easy. Underprivileged students will lose significantly the positive effects of this kind of relationship. So governments and educational institutions need to provide teachers with a variety of alternative ways to maintain a stable communication with the student. The hybrid model, of course, can help a lot here. We already saw a few solutions for the problem with the meals, and the governments need to be flexible addressing this very important issue. Now, school closures are expected to exacerbate girls' and women's unpaid care work, thus limiting the time to learn at home. The absence of schools as safe places heightens the risk of various gender-based violence for the girls around the world. The educational community needs to collect data and share it with school and country authorities in an effort to protect these girls. Now, we talked a little bit about the e-learning platform, but I would like to say a few things because it's the way that teaching is being delivered from the platform is really, really important because this is the tool that gives the ability to the teacher to do the best of his work. Now, synchronous and asynchronous learning is a key for situations like the present. Some platforms have been offering the chance of synchronous and asynchronous learning. This can benefit students who have restricted access to a computer or they do not have a quiet environment at home. For example, some teachers have given the students the chance to see recording of their lessons and access files anytime. Tools for assessment. We need a variety of assessment tools to keep students' attention at high level. We discussed a little bit before about it. Collaboration between teachers is key to improve performance and solve pressing problems, exchanging views between them. Inclusivity refers to be able to provide access to students with any type of learning difficulty and also those whose first language is not the language of teaching. These can be captions, like we saw before with Alexa presenting, can be translators, can be immersive readers, etc. Now, regarding the following three bullets, teachers use a variety of tools to create questionnaires and polls in order to identify students' needs. This creates an invaluable pool of data that can help institutions to identify inequalities and help each student individually, as they have a very clear idea of their backgrounds and how they can intervene to help. Sparking creativity, students' innate creativity found new channels to be expressed. Underprivileged students, unfortunately, at times cannot take advantage of all the capacities of platforms. They get the minimum that platforms can give them for a number of reasons we explained before. So it is very important to improve access to platforms, and we see later in our proposals. Teach essential skills for students' future. In an effort to make the inequality gap smaller for the future of our students, we need to teach them essential digital literacy skills that will help them to be successful. E-learning platforms teach intentionally and unintentionally these types of skills. And of course, providing a safe learning environment, it is very important for education and students that they must feel cyber and emotional safety when they use the platform, regarding their identity, their private data and anonymous polls. I want to close my presentation with some ideas of call to action for the stakeholders involved in education. So I'm starting from the policymakers and the ministries. I think that it's important to invest in infrastructure, so as many students as possible have the means to be included in this hybrid learning. Also invest in professional development for teachers and administrative staff. Form partnerships to enhance connectivity, and be able to provide at least one device per classroom, at least, so that there is a place where children who do not have access to the connectivity to the internet can go there and can learn in the classroom. And of course, continue with the radio and TV lessons. Now, the next level is prefectures and districts, which they have the maintenance of the school buildings. They have to ensure connectivity for the schools, and they have to protect the at-risk communities with the ways that we saw before. Next, for the schools, to install and have and maintain the hybrid learning at its best level, to invest in flexible classrooms, so if there is a hybrid learning scenario, they can adjust the size of the classroom, and identify at-risk students in order to support them. Now, regarding educators, they have to become familiar with the platforms. It's not an easy task. We have seen that the past few months, but it's something achievable, at least to a center level, very quickly. Collaborate with other educators in order to exchange views and ideas. Adopt the social and emotional learning for their students. Be adaptive, and a change of mindset. I know it's too much to ask, but this is something, maybe a new model of the educator with a hybrid way of addressing the students. And also for parents, they have to seek support in order to be able to provide help to their students, to their children, adapt their expectations, because the delivery of the lessons will not be the same in the hybrid model as in the classroom, and familiarize with the new teaching models, which is the new norm. Thank you very much.